A thief believed he had chosen an ideal location at an ATM, a minor oversight. A woman had a dog with her. He didn't think it was a significant issue. He's committed this crime before. What he wasn't aware of, that wasn't just any dog. It was a trained canine German Shepherd. And the subsequent events left him pleading for assistance. Before we share today's story, please leave a comment below indicating where in the world you are watching from. And if you enjoy extraordinary canine stories such as this one, be sure to click the subscribe button. A sense of anticipation hung in the air. The autumn wind whistled through the deserted streets of downtown, carrying with it the rustling of fallen leaves and the faint sound of city activity. The clock had just indicated 9, and the typically lively financial district was vacant, leaving behind an unsettling quiet, disturbed only by the infrequent passage of vehicles. Emma Walker drew her navy blue jacket more closely around herself, her footsteps resonating against the concrete sidewalk. Nearby, Atlas moved with understated assurance, his substantial German Shepherd build presenting a striking presence under the faint street lamps. His ears were consistently attentive, meticulously observing their environment, a habit developed through years of military instruction. The recognizable blue light of the ATM called to them from the intersection of Winston and 4th. Emma hadn't intended to make a withdrawal so late, but her morning meeting with new clients required her to have cash available. Atlas remained patiently as she neared the machine, his amber eyes mirroring the fluorescent light from the bank's exterior. "Just a quick stop, boy," Emma said softly, retrieving her card from her wallet. The night felt different, somehow quieter than usual. Even the distant traffic seemed softened, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Atlas's ears moved at every small sound. The rustle of paper caught in a fence. The screech of a cat somewhere in the distance. Emma paused, her finger hovering over the keypad. The soft thud of footsteps seemed closer now, more deliberate. Atlas's posture shifted slightly, his muscles tensing beneath his thick fur. She felt it too, that creeping sensation of being watched, of eyes boring into her back from somewhere in the shadows. The ATM screen glowed steadily, waiting for her pin. The wind picked up again, carrying with it the metallic tang of approaching rain. Emma's fingers moved rapidly across the keypad, attempting to disregard the feeling of her heart pounding in her chest. Atlas stayed motionless, but his focus shifted to something behind them, his ears alert, his body tense like a coiled spring. The machine started, beginning to process her transaction. Emma hoped it would proceed more quickly, keenly aware of how vulnerable they were. The street lamp above them flickered once, momentarily extinguishing before sputtering back to illumination. During that instant of darkness, she detected it distinctly, another footstep drawing nearer, and the subtle rasp of metal against cloth. Atlas emitted a low vibration so muted it was barely noticeable. It wasn't his customary warning bark, nor even a growl. This was unlike anything she's heard from him. A sound Emma had only experienced him produce once previously, during their previous training session together. A distinct noise escaped him, a sign he perceived genuine peril. The ATM emitted a beep, releasing her money with precise mechanical action. Emma's hands shook a little as she took the bills, her breath appearing in the chilly night air. She felt Atlas's apprehension emanating from beside her, his training clashing with his innate desire to move, to act, to safeguard. It was then that she detected it. The distinctive sound of a blade being drawn, followed by the thud of heavy footsteps on concrete. Atlas's muscles tensed, poised to act, but before either of them could respond, a harsh voice pierced the night air, hinting at impending violence. "Don't move. Don't even think about it." The voice emerged from the shadows, carrying the confident power of someone experienced in such situations. It lacked the shaky nervousness of a novice. This carried the distinct feel of a seasoned encounter. Emma felt a chill as she became aware of someone behind her. Dangerously close. Unacceptably close. "Give me the money. Now." The money in Emma's grasp suddenly felt heavy. Her past military training resurfaced. Evaluate the circumstances, recognize potential dangers, determine possible courses of action. But each potential solution that crossed her thoughts vanished swiftly. Escape. He was too near. Confront him. The danger was too great. Atlas hadn't moved a muscle beside her, but she perceived the shift in his posture. His body had become tense, with each muscle coiled, ready to act. His eyes, those keen amber orbs, were focused on something behind her, analyzing and evaluating, just as he'd been trained to do in Afghanistan. I said now. Impatience broke through the man's restrained demeanor, a risky sharpness that signaled violence barely contained. Emma turned, her movements slow and precise, mirroring the techniques she's instructed numerous handlers to use in dangerous situations. The man's stature was immediately apparent. He was significantly taller than her, and his dark clothing seemed chosen to disappear into the shadows. However, her attention was drawn to the knife. It was a tactical blade, military grade, with a serrated edge that reflected the ATM's blue light with a threatening gleam. He held it with the easy assurance of someone who knew how to use it well. Atlas emitted a low rumble. It wasn't the typical warning bark of a family pet, but the deliberate threat assessment of a military canine. The sound finally caught the mugger's attention, focusing on the German shepherd. "Shut that mutt up," he spat, gesturing with the knife in a way that indicated formal training in close-quarter combat. "Or I'll do it myself." His eyes moved quickly between Emma and Atlas, conducting rapid threat assessments but incorrectly analyzing the situation. The manner in which he held the knife indicated a familiarity born of dangerous situations, not classroom instruction. "Just take it," Emma said, keeping her voice steady, utilizing the hostage negotiation techniques she's learned over the years. She started to offer her hand with the cash, continuing the gradual, reassuring motions she's practiced in numerous military drills. The man's eyes narrowed as he observed her cooperation, his instincts alerting him that something felt amiss. That's when Atlas barked, not a fearful yelp, but a bark filled with the authority of a trained military canine. The sound resonated off the nearby buildings, a clear signal that carried through the quiet street. The mugger's reaction was slight but significant. He's dealt with dogs previously, but not one like this. A brief expression of anger crossed his face, stemming from a bruised ego more than genuine fear. "I told him to be quiet." His boot struck out with practiced precision, connecting with Atlas's ribs with a jarring impact that indicated steel-toed reinforcement. The German shepherd's yelp pierced Emma's heart like a blade. The sound of her partner in pain sparked something primal within her as she observed him stumble. "Stop!" The word escaped her throat, but the attacker had already shifted focus, closing the gap with the swift movements of a predator. The knife located her throat with a familiar smoothness, its chill edge a stark contrast against her skin. The blade possessed a keen sharpness, a professional quality, the type manufactured for military applications. "Give me the money," his voice rumbled, carrying the musty odor of cigarettes and another, indefinable scent, hinting at more troubling routines. "And everything else you possess, cease the delay." Emma sensed Atlas regaining his composure nearby, the first cry of pain shifting into a deeper, sustained rumble that hinted at military discipline and restrained aggression. The man's gaze had become intense now, moving rapidly between Emma, the cash, and the dog. His hand shook a little as it gripped the knife, but Emma understood it wasn't due to fear. It was adrenaline, the compelling surge of strength that comes from controlling another person's life. "Empty your pockets too. Everything." The knife pressed harder, and Emma felt a sharp sting as the blade's edge made contact with her skin. A single drop of blood appeared and trickled down her neck, feeling warm against her cold skin. It was objectively minor, barely more than a paper cut, but that single drop of blood altered everything. Atlas observed it fall, noting its path as it stained the collar of Emma's jacket crimson. At that instant, a significant alteration occurred in the German shepherd's behavior. Emma perceived it initially, the alteration in the atmosphere, the way Atlas's growl evolved from a caution into something else entirely. His military training, inactive for so long, rose to the surface. The playful companion vanished, replaced by the precise weapon he'd been trained to be. The mugger failed to recognize the change, too engrossed in the contents of Emma's pockets. He failed to notice Atlas's muscles tense, didn't detect the dangerous focus in those amber eyes. He continued issuing commands when Atlas moved forward, a swift movement of concentrated aggression and practiced skill. The moment appeared to stretch as his teeth closed on the mugger's knife hand, hitting the precise spot between thumb and wrist, a technique military canines are trained to disable. The force of the impact propelled both individuals rearward, Atlas's motion designed to destabilize the assailant while preserving his own equilibrium. The man's scream tore through the night, a visceral primal sound originating from within his core and releasing into the deserted street. The knife slipped from his limp fingers, rotating as it descended, reflecting the fluorescent glow of the ATM before striking the damp pavement. A metallic sound reverberated among the nearby buildings, sharply contrasting with the attacker's ongoing cries. "Get him off! Get him off!" The man's voice broke with panic as he struggled violently, his unconstrained arms swinging in frantic motions. However, Atlas's hold demonstrated the result of thousands of hours of military instruction. His jaw exerted a precise force of 450 psi, applied with surgical precision to restrain without causing harm. Each subtle movement of his muscles, every minor adjustment of his grip revealed years of experience and a disturbing readiness. Emma recoiled, her fingertips detecting the faint line of blood on her neck. The minor abrasion throbbed in the cool night air, a stark reminder of how narrowly she had escaped a much graver situation. Her heart pounded against her ribs as she observed Atlas at work. This was not the affectionate friend who nestled on her sofa or retrieved tennis balls in the park. This was a military-grade canine demonstrating years of specialized training with mechanical precision. "I'll kill you." The mugger's free hand swung wildly, attempting to connect with Atlas's head. But the German shepherd moved like liquid shadow, evading each desperate strike while maintaining that iron grip. His training was evident in every action, from how he shielded his vulnerable eyes, to how he adjusted his posture for maximum control, and how he leveraged the man's own force. The attacker's attempts became more hurried, each failure intensifying his panic. Initially sparse, the rain began to fall, quickly becoming a consistent beat. The ATM's blue light illuminated each raindrop, forming a dreamlike scene around the conflict. Water began to darken the pavement, causing the mugger's boots to slip and scrape as he struggled for leverage. But Atlas's paws remained planted with unwavering certainty, his years of training evident in how he adjusted his stance to account for the slick surface. "Let go." Another wild swing whistled through the rain, missing Atlas by inches. The man's face contorted into a mask of pain and fury, his threats dissolving into incoherent sounds of rage and fear. His free hand moved toward his pocket, but Atlas had been trained to identify such actions. The German shepherd subtly altered his hold, adding a precisely measured increase in pressure that produced another howl echoing through the night. Emma's hands shook as she retrieved her phone, raindrops hitting the display. The mugger's eyes grew wider at her action, desperation now evident instead of his previous confidence. "Don't you dare," he growled, trying to move toward her. Atlas's grip remained unyielding, his muscles flexing beneath his increasingly wet fur as he maintained perfect control. Even through the rain, Emma could see the intense focus in his amber eyes, the look of a professional executing his mission with unwavering dedication. Sirens began to wail in the distance, their sound cutting through the steady drumming of the rain. The mugger's struggles intensified, panic now evident in every movement. He struggled to regain his balance, trying to stand. However, Atlas effortlessly blocked the attempt. The German shepherd utilized the man's own force against him, a maneuver perfected through extensive military training. They were returned to the damp pavement, the mugger prone on the ground, Atlas holding him firmly while subtly shifting his position to adapt to the altered situation. "He's going to tear my hand off," the man exclaimed, his earlier aggression vanished, now expressing palpable fear. Emma observed the deliberate composure in Atlas's stance. It wasn't the uncontrolled aggression of an angered animal. Instead, it was the careful regulation of a professionally trained military canine. Each action was intentional, each modification of force accurately assessed. Atlas possessed the capability to inflict significant injury if he selected to, but that wasn't within his training. Regulation, not injury, was consistently the goal. The rain intensified now, adhering Atlas's fur to his robust physique. Streams of water trickled down the mugger's face, mingling with sweat and the tears that had started to fall. His efforts were diminishing, the fight leaving him as the truth became clear. The knife rested abandoned in a spreading pool, its danger lessened by a power its owner had tragically misjudged. "Please," he cried out, his voice faint against the rain and the sound of approaching sirens. "I'm finished. I'm finished. Release him." But Atlas's amber eyes stayed fixed on his objective, his grip firm. His time in the military had instilled in him the ability to remain composed until formally released, and that discipline was evident in his demeanor. His ears remained attentive, monitoring the sound of approaching sirens, while his muscles stayed braced, prepared to respond to any final, frantic actions. The flashing red and blue lights appeared through the rain, reflecting on the damp ground and producing a vibrant array of emergency hues. The mugger ceased struggling, lying face down on the ground with his hands securely held in Atlas's grip. His chest rose and fell with labored breaths, each exhale a testament to his utter defeat. Emma observed as police cars arrived, their headlights piercing the rain. Officers dismounted, weapons drawn. "Police, remain still." The order sliced through the rain, distinct and forceful. 3 officers appeared through the rain, their tactical flashlights illuminating the area with bright white light. Emma raised her hands slowly, intentionally showing her empty palms. The movement caused a slight pain from the small cut on her neck, a reminder of how narrowly things had unfolded. "He's the one," she stated, her voice calm despite her rapid heartbeat. She indicated the subdued mugger with a careful motion. "My dog. He's trained." The former military canine reacted to his training, not displaying aggressive behavior. She maintained a professional tone, recognizing the vital importance of these initial moments for the safety of all involved. The officers advanced with tactical precision, their movements deliberate and synchronized. Their flashlight beams pierced the rain-filled air, revealing a scene that spoke volumes. A combat knife rested in a spreading puddle, its edge still reflecting the light, as the mugger lay secured on the damp pavement. Atlas, demonstrating remarkable composure, held him with practiced accuracy while rain flowed down his strong physique. He showed no reaction to the arriving officers, nor did he increase his hold. His military background was evident in his posture. "Ma'am, is this your dog?" As one officer moved closer to Emma, his colleagues continued to monitor the area, their hands positioned near their weapons but not deployed. His nameplate reflected the light, identifying him as Martinez, and his actions indicated extensive experience. Emma observed his approach from a strategic angle, mindful of her personal space and Atlas's possible response area. She subtly touched the faint mark on her neck, a reminder of where the knife had caused a cut. The rain had washed away the blood, but the memory remained vivid. Yes, this is Atlas. His background included service in a K-9 unit with 3 tours in Afghanistan, where he specialized in suspect apprehension and handler protection. Officer Martinez observed Atlas with the experienced gaze of someone accustomed to working dogs. The German Shepherd's grip was precise, maintaining control without inflicting undue harm, his body aligned to impede any attempts at escape from the suspect. "I see that," Martinez stated, a genuine note of admiration in his voice. "That's not civilian training we're looking at. Never really leaves them, does it? That military precision." He keyed his radio, his voice calm and professional. "Dispatch, be advised, we've got a military K-9 on scene. Situation is contained. Subject is secured by the K-9. No additional units needed." Code 3. The mugger, his face pressed against the wet pavement, had abandoned all pretense of resistance. His voice emerged as a pleading whisper, a stark contrast to his previous threats. "Please just get this beast off me. I can't feel my hand anymore. Please." Martinez replied calmly, almost clinically. "You can feel it just fine. That's a military-trained bite hold. If you couldn't feel your hand, that would mean he wanted to cause actual damage. Trust me, if he wanted to hurt you, you'd be in an ambulance right now, not talking." He turned to Emma, maintaining a professional demeanor. "Ma'am, when you are prepared, you may give him the release command. We currently have sufficient officers present." Emma approached, her voice possessing the authority that Atlas was trained to acknowledge, even as her hands still shook. "Atlas, release." The instruction was barely finished when Atlas reacted, showcasing his excellent training. He released his grasp immediately, retreating precisely 2 steps. The established procedure for preserving tactical superiority while establishing a secure perimeter. His gaze remained fixed on the suspect, his posture still tense and prepared to react should the situation escalate. Each action was deliberate, restrained, and professional. 2 officers approached seamlessly, their handcuffs produced with practiced skill. As they restrained the mugger's hands behind his back, their flashlights illuminated the confirmation of Atlas's exacting command. There were no signs of injury. There were no serious lacerations, only deep impression marks that would result in significant bruising. This demonstrated a level of control honed by years of military training. Martinez picked up the knife with a gloved hand, inspecting it with a professional eye. It was a 7-inch tactical blade, featuring a serrated edge. He looked at the mugger, then at Atlas. You are fortunate you realize that. Many dogs, even those with training, would have inflicted severe wounds when they observed their owner experiencing bleeding. This one, however, he indicated Atlas, who remained watchful beside Emma, poised for action. He understood his actions precisely. This wasn't merely training, it was military precision. The mugger faltered as officers escorted him to a waiting patrol car, his soaked clothing dripping onto the ground. A mix of fear and anger colored his voice as he yelled over his shoulder, "That dog's a weapon. Could have killed me. You all witnessed it. It's dangerous." Martinez's reply reflected considerable experience. He did not harm you. Rather, he applied precisely the force necessary to prevent you from causing harm to another person. That is not a weapon, it's a professional. He addressed Emma, his deference clear. We will require a complete statement from you, ma'am. And frankly, I'm very interested in learning more about your companion. We rarely observe this degree of restraint in non-military circumstances. Emma moved to kneel alongside Atlas, her fingers tracing the well-known patterns through his damp fur. His muscles remained taut, prepared for action, yet his eyes began to relax at her touch. The shift was captivating to observe. The sharp military focus slowly receded, akin to a meticulously sharpened blade being carefully returned to its sheath. 3 tours in Afghanistan, she mentioned, unable to suppress the pride in her tone despite the remaining adrenaline. He was trained in suspect apprehension and handler protection. I collaborated with him during his final year of service. Her fingers located the area behind his ears that he enjoyed, and Atlas shifted closer to her touch, even as his gaze followed the officers guiding his target toward the patrol car. The hearing impairment resulting from an IED explosion necessitated early retirement. However, as you can observe, the training remains ingrained. Martinez acknowledged this, a sincere look of gratitude on his face. That clarifies the degree of control we just observed. Even well-trained civilian dogs would likely have reacted aggressively after witnessing their owner threatened. He indicated the area where evidence markers were being positioned around the knife and blood droplets. This demonstrated a textbook military apprehension technique, minimum force, maximum control, the kind of precision achieved through thousands of hours of specialized training. He retrieved his notebook, its pages dampened by the rain. Would you be willing to provide us with your complete statement? This incident serves as an excellent illustration of appropriate force employed in civilian defense, a scenario that could be valuable for training exercises. The heavy rain had begun to ease, settling into a gentle drizzle that caught the light from newly arrived patrol cars, creating shifting patterns of red and blue on the wet streets. Officers were moving purposefully around the scene, photographing evidence, marking positions, and documenting how one mugger had learned the hard way about underestimating a retired military canine. Emma stroked Atlas's back, sensing the strong muscles that had benefited from his training. The disciplined soldier was fading now, giving way to her beloved companion, although she understood that this other facet of him would always remain, poised to surface immediately if necessary. Ready to deliver our statement, boy? She inquired gently. Atlas gazed up at her, his amber eyes bright and watchful, and then rose gracefully, water dripping from his coat in shimmering trails. Martinez guided them to his patrol car, where they could record their statements in a dry place. He mused, we could genuinely benefit from having a dog like him to showcase correct canine restraint methods at the academy. Those particular control skills are uncommon, particularly in retirement. The manner in which he sustained that hold while preventing significant harm is precisely what we aim to instruct our canine units. He accessed the car's rear door. Would you consider assisting us in demonstrating authentic professional restraint to our trainees? An hour later, Emma was seated in her living room, holding a warm cup of tea, observing Atlas as he rested on his bed close to the fireplace. He had completely dried off after they arrived home, but she still used a towel to dry him, carefully examining him for any injuries from the kick he'd received. There were no visible marks. He was as tough as always. The occurrences of the night replayed in her thoughts. The ATM, the knife, that single drop of blood that had activated Atlas's training. She touched her neck, where the minor cut had already ceased bleeding, practically just a scratch. The mugger's words replayed in her mind. That dog's a weapon, but he'd been mistaken. Atlas wasn't a weapon, he was a protector, trained to apply precisely the appropriate force, and nothing more. Officer Martinez's card was on her coffee table. He's been sufficiently impressed to propose that Atlas could assist in training new canine units, demonstrating what true control resembled. Most dogs either fail to engage or escalate the situation, he had clarified. What your dog did tonight, that's the ideal example. Impeccable restraint, impeccable control. Atlas's ears twitched at a sound from outside, but his body stayed loose. The military sharpness he had shown previously had completely faded, yielding to the calm presence she knew so well. Still, Emma recognized more deeply than ever that both aspects of him were genuinely present, equally significant. The training hadn't made him perilous, it had made him dependable. Her phone vibrated with a text from her sister. Just saw the police report. Are you okay? Emma smiled, quickly typing back, we're fine, Atlas handled it. She anticipated a wave of questions tomorrow, but for now, she simply wanted to sit with her guardian, her friend. Come here, boy, she called softly. Atlas rose immediately, padding over to settle beside her chair. She ran her fingers through his fur, still slightly damp from the rain. You're still the same good boy you've always been, she murmured, just with some extra skills we hope we never need. Atlas gazed at her, his intelligent amber eyes reflecting the unwavering dedication Emma had always recognized, the ability to transition swiftly from playful friend to resolute guardian based on her needs. The mugger had perceived only the focus of his training, but Emma understood the complete picture. She saw the kind spirit who enjoyed belly rubs, and the skilled professional capable of neutralizing an armed assailant with precise technique. A distant siren echoed somewhere in the city, and Atlas's ears twitched toward the sound, but his eyes remained fixed on Emma, clear and alert, prepared as always for whatever might occur. She smiled, scratching that spot behind his ears that he loved. I think we've experienced enough excitement for one night, haven't we? Tomorrow she knew she'd have to file more reports. Police inquiries, concerned calls from friends and family, and potential media attention regarding the military dog who thwarted an armed robbery were all possibilities. However, for tonight it was simply the pair, secure and united. Emma relaxed further in her chair, the last traces of adrenaline dissipating. Atlas rested his head on her lap, a reassuring weight that conveyed protection and loyalty. The rain had ceased entirely, leaving the city refreshed and still. Good boy, Atlas, she murmured, her voice filled with pride and gratitude. Good boy. As Atlas settled comfortably beneath her hand, Emma realized that while she hoped to never endure another night like this, she could handle anything with her trained guardian present. What would you do in a similar situation? Has your dog ever shielded you from harm? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Consider this. Do you believe military and police dogs should be allowed to retire with their handlers? I read every comment. If you enjoyed the Atlas story of bravery and protection, please like the video. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to receive notifications for future incredible canine stories. Explore these other compelling canine stories currently displayed. Each highlights the remarkable connection between handlers and their expertly trained partners. Until next time, remember, behind every exceptional canine is a story of loyalty, training, and unwavering courage. A search dog persistently circled a location within the forest, disregarding commands. "Control your animal," the sergeant ordered. When they finally excavated at the spot she indicated, the discovery beneath the soil stunned the entire search team. Before we delve into today's narrative, please share in the comments where you're watching from. And if you appreciate remarkable police dogs and stories like this one, be sure to subscribe. Prepare for what's about to unfold. The early morning fog lay over Rockwell National Forest, resembling a ghostly veil, changing the tall pines into shadowy sentinels. Officer Lydia Mercer adjusted her jacket against the autumn chill as she looked over the training area, her breath appearing as small clouds in the cool air. Next to her, Aspen, her 5-year-old German Shepherd, remained watchful. Dark ears stood erect in anticipation, intelligent eyes examining the tree line. "The weather is ideal for scent work today," observed Sergeant Dominic Carter, as he came forward with a clipboard. "The humidity is keeping the odors close to the ground, which should make today's exercise straightforward for Aspen." Lydia nodded, making adjustments to the specialized search vest on Aspen's muscular frame. "She's been restless all morning. I believe she understands that this is not just another training day." Nearby, for additional canine teams readied themselves for the exercise, handlers inspecting gear as their dogs exhibited different levels of composure. The sound of autumn leaves crackling resonated with each step as Sergeant Carter assembled the group for a concluding briefing. "We've positioned 6 training aids within this quadrant," he stated, spreading a topographical map across the hood of his department SUV. These aids consist of standard human remains scent pads, buried at varying depths and exposed to diverse environmental conditions. The focus was on precision, not haste. Lydia maintained a measured distance, clipboard ready, observing Aspen execute her established search pattern. The shepherd proceeded with deliberate skill, moving in a quartering pattern against the wind, her nose constantly analyzing the air for the slightest indication of the scent of human remains. After 30 minutes of the training, Aspen had already found 2 of the training aids, correctly indicating each discovery while Lydia recorded the positions. The forest's difficulty increased as they progressed, with thick undergrowth and fallen trees forming natural barriers. Abruptly, Aspen's consistent behavior shifted. The dog's head rose quickly, her nose working intensely as she analyzed the scents. Unexpectedly, she turned sharply to the left, deviating from their designated search zone. "Aspen, this way," Lydia called, employing the hand signal to guide her partner. For the first time in their 3 years together, Aspen disregarded the command entirely. The shepherd proceeded with growing urgency, pushing through a dense thicket of brambles toward an area that wasn't part of the training ground. Her body language had changed, tail straight, muscles tense, ears rigidly forward. "Aspen," Lydia called more sharply, a flutter of concern replacing her initial irritation. This wasn't like her partner at all. Far away, Sergeant Carter's gaze met hers, his face changing from interest to concern as Aspen strayed from the planned route. Lydia activated her radio. "Sergeant, Aspen is signaling something outside our designated zone. I'm proceeding to check it out." The quick reply came, "Negative, Mercer. Return your dog and stick to the designated path. We need to adhere to our timetable." Lydia paused, observing as Aspen entered an open space approximately 70 yards past their assigned boundaries. The dog started circling a particular spot close to a group of fallen trees, her actions growing more frantic. Then Aspen did something she had been specifically trained not to do. She began to dig, her front paws striking the ground with desperate intensity. "Something's wrong," Lydia murmured, starting to run toward her partner. By the time she arrived at the clearing, Aspen was whining, a high-pitched sound of distress as she circled and returned to dig at the same spot. Sergeant Carter arrived shortly thereafter, his expression showing displeasure. "Officer Mercer, this is not acceptable. Control your—" His sentence was cut off as he observed Aspen's actions more carefully. 20 years of experience with dogs told him this wasn't disobedience or inattention. "That's not a training reaction," he said softly, his eyes focusing on the area where Aspen continued to circle and dig. "That's a genuine alert. Get me a shovel," Lydia said to a nearby trainee, keeping her gaze fixed on Aspen, who continued circling and pawing at the ground with increasing urgency. The dog's actions had changed from excited to nearly frantic, her whines growing more insistent. The trainee brought 2 shovels, and Lydia started carefully removing layers of soil and forest debris where Aspen pointed. At a depth of 6 inches, she observed the initial inconsistency, roots that had been neatly severed instead of naturally winding around obstructions. The soil composition also differed, exhibiting less density compared to the adjacent ground. "Someone has excavated here previously," she stated softly, making eye contact with Carter, whose doubt was diminishing quickly. They persisted in digging, establishing a broader area around Aspen's designated location. The atmosphere felt denser with every layer of soil unearthed. The sounds of the forest appeared to diminish as their attention centered on the work. 12 inches down, Lydia's shovel hit something that wasn't stone or root. The muted impact sent a shiver up her spine. "Wait," she said, her voice a near whisper. She paused instantly, dropping to her knees next to the small excavation. Using gloved hands, she began carefully clearing away the remaining earth, applying the meticulous technique she'd acquired in evidence recovery training. A hush fell over the officers present. The only sound was Aspen's rhythmic breathing as she stood motionless at the grave's edge, her posture rigid with conviction. One trainee officer averted his gaze, unable to witness the ongoing excavation. "Oh God," Lydia murmured, her gloved fingers brushing against what were undeniably human fingers, partially decomposed but distinctly identifiable. The pallid complexion stood out sharply against the dark soil, the truth of their find undeniable. A look of shock drained the color from Carter's face. His previous doubts vanished. He recoiled, retrieving his radio with a hand that shook subtly despite his extensive background. "This is Sergeant Carter at the Northeast Training Grounds," he stated, his voice maintaining professionalism but strained. "We have a 10 to 29 possible human remains. I require the on-call detective, forensics, and county coroner to my GPS location without delay. Coordinates to follow." Aspen stayed near the graveside, her stance watchful but now more relaxed, as though content that her message had been received. Lydia put a comforting hand on the shepherd's shoulder, a wordless recognition of her dedication. Shortly after, the tranquil forest clearing transformed into a center of organized action. Yellow crime scene tape defined a broad boundary around the discovery location, and officers commenced recording the scene through photographs and written observations. Detective Marcus Whitley arrived 30 minutes later, his department SUV traveling along the narrow Forest Service road to reach the scene. The tall, broad-shouldered detective, having worked with canine teams previously, immediately adhered to the perimeter protocols as he approached. "What do we have?" he asked, putting on latex gloves. "Human remains, Detective," Carter reported, noting they were initially discovered by Officer Mercer's cadaver dog during training. A single hand was observed, approximately 14 inches beneath the surface. The forensic team responded quickly, deploying portable lighting despite the midday hour. The thick forest canopy resulted in a dim, twilight-like atmosphere on the forest floor. During the continued, careful excavation, the situation's severity became apparent. The remains of a young male, believed to be in his teens, were discovered in a shallow grave obscured by forest debris, apparently in an attempt to hide it. Based on decomposition, an estimated 3 to 4 months had passed, the county medical examiner observed, meticulously examining the visible remains without disrupting the crime scene. No apparent cause of death was immediately evident. Detective Whitley surveyed the area with focused precision, his experienced eyes registering every detail as the forensic team continued their careful excavation. "Officer Mercer," he said, gesturing Lydia closer to the gravesite, "tell me about your dog's initial alert. Was there something peculiar about the scene?" Lydia nodded, holding Aspen's leash tightly. She disregarded procedure entirely, an action she had never taken in her 3 years of work and training, disobeyed instructions, left the designated search area, and led us directly here. Her alert was pronounced. Frantic digging, circling, vocalizations, the typical signs of a cadaver location, but with an unusual degree of urgency. Aspen had stayed focused, her gaze moving between the grave and a spot several yards to the east. Lydia observed Aspen's body language, understanding there was additional evidence to uncover. While trained in human remains detection, she was also known to be discerning, Lydia clarified. She possesses the ability to differentiate between the primary source and any secondary evidence connected to it. Whitley acknowledged this with a nod. "Show me," Lydia requested. She adjusted her hold on Aspen's lead. "Find more, Aspen. Show me." Releasing Aspen from the sit-stay command, the dog instantly moved toward the eastern boundary of the clearing, nose close to the ground. She halted suddenly, pointing to a particular place under a fallen log with the identical focused sitting position she employed in training. Forensic technicians meticulously examined the area, discovering a cigarette butt lodged between the log and the forest floor. 6 feet beyond, Aspen alerted once more, leading them to a blood-stained handkerchief partly concealed under leaves. "Collect those separately and label them as possible DNA sources," Whitley directed. A burgeoning respect shone in his eyes as he observed Aspen work. "That dog is worth her weight in gold." As the afternoon progressed, the victim was fully excavated, revealing the body of a teenage boy. No obvious wounds were visible through his clothing, but the unnatural position suggested trauma prior to death. While the search teams organized their grid pattern, Lydia took a moment to give Aspen a water break in a quiet spot away from the center of activity. Lydia observed her partner and couldn't help but consider the remarkable path that had united them 3 years earlier. The shepherd had originally been involved in a military working dog program, trained by former Marine Master Sergeant Reed Calloway, who had served with the Corps Elite Forensic Investigation Unit. Calloway had become known for developing dogs with exceptional scent discrimination abilities, driven by a personal tragedy. "He's too independent," Calloway had told Lydia, introducing her to the intense-eyed shepherd who sat watching them with unnerving focus. "Follows her nose instead of commands when she believes she's right. Military handlers want predictability above all else." Lydia had seen something different. Not defiance, but extraordinary conviction. Where others saw a problematic canine, she recognized a dog with rare gifts that simply needed the right partner. A deep and instant bond formed, with Aspen reacting to Lydia's careful approach in ways that surprised even Calloway. "She requires someone who will trust her when she deviates from established procedures, for valid reasons," he observed, watching their initial collaboration. "She is invariably correct when she departs from the planned course. She's simply interpreting scent information beyond human perception." The specialized training Calloway had created incorporated methods seldom employed in typical police canine programs, instructing dogs to identify minute quantities of human decomposition, amounts nearly impossible for instruments to register, to differentiate between various human odors at a location, and to operate autonomously while tracking intricate scent pathways. At the command post, situated on the Forest Service Road, Detective Whitley had created a temporary investigative hub within his SUV. The laptop screen showed a database of missing persons reports while he compared information from the crime scene. Male, Caucasian, around 16 to 18 years old. Athletic build, he said, adjusting the search filters. The search included records from the last 4 months within a 100-mile radius. Lydia came over after arranging for Aspen to work with the search team coordinator. "Any matches?" Whitley responded somberly, angling the screen so she could see. "3 possibilities, but this one looks most likely. Ryan Hollister, age 17, has been missing for 4 months. He was last seen hiking in Crestwood Park, approximately 20 miles southeast of here. The image shown was of a smiling teenager with sandy brown hair and a scattering of freckles on his nose. He was wearing a Letterman jacket from Westlake High School, matching the bright blue color of the worn backpack discovered with the remains. Crestwood is 20 miles from here," Lydia noted. "How could he have been located in Rockwell Forest?" "That's the question," Whitley affirmed, scrolling through the original missing persons report. The report indicated that Ryan was an experienced hiker, Eagle Scout, and member of his school's cross-country team. He was not the kind of person to become lost or stray that far from the trail. A forensic technician approached, presenting a sealed evidence bag containing the recovered backpack. "Detective, we discovered a student ID in the side pocket, partially degraded but still readable. Whitley scrutinized the plastic identification card visible within the clear evidence bag, then glanced at his screen. Ryan Hollister, Westlake High. It was him. He promptly reached for his phone. "I need to contact the family," he stated. "They've been waiting for answers for 4 months." The initial investigation had been entirely centered on Crestwood Park, based on the assumption that Ryan had experienced an accident or became lost. The possibility of foul play hadn't been considered, and no one had envisioned searching in a separate forest several miles away. "This wasn't a hiking accident," Lydia stated softly, glancing towards the crime scene. "Someone deliberately buried him here, far from where anyone would expect to look." As daylight diminished, portable lights shone on the forest clearing as the broadened search effort continued. 9 teams joined to help, each with unique skills. To ensure accuracy, tracking and evidence detection protocols were implemented, with a second HRD dog deployed to validate Aspen's findings. Lydia and Aspen spearheaded a team moving north from the grave site. The shepherd demonstrated renewed vigor despite the considerable hours already invested. Aspen's speed increased, her tail position signaling heightened anticipation, as they traversed a thick stand of pine trees. The ground declined gradually towards a small, naturally occurring clearing approximately half a mile from the burial site. Signs of recent camping were evident. Officer Ramirez, one of the evidence technicians, was observed shining his flashlight on a fire ring constructed from rocks. Around it, partially buried in leaves and dirt, were discarded beer cans, food wrappers, and the remains of a temporary campsite. The shepherd noted several beer cans near the fire ring, indicating significant evidence. As technicians documented the items with photographs and secured them in bags, Aspen proceeded to the clearing's perimeter, observing faint tire tracks in a muddy area shielded from exposure by overhanging branches. "What have we got?" Whitley inquired upon his arrival. "Campsite recently used but deliberately obscured," Ramirez reported. "Discarded beer cans, a fire pit, signs of several people, and these tire tracks indicate they drove in via the old logging road instead of hiking from the trails." Aspen continued, examining the clearing's boundary, then abruptly signaled intensely near a pile of rocks on the eastern edge. With careful attention, the evidence technicians removed the rocks individually, revealing a cell phone. The screen was shattered, but the device remained otherwise undamaged. The item was intentionally concealed under the rock pile, contained within a plastic bag that shielded it from moisture. The forest investigation persisted throughout the night and extended into the following morning, with teams operating in shifts to manage the expanding crime scene. Initial DNA analysis confirmed the blood on the handkerchief corresponded to Ryan Hollister's blood type, and the tech team had retrieved text messages, photos, and location data from the period leading up to his disappearance. The photographs depicted 4 teenagers at the campsite they found yesterday. Ryan Hollister was easily recognizable, smiling with 3 other boys. They were consuming beer near the campfire, appearing relaxed and lively. This directly conflicts with the accounts his friends provided to the police. Whitley stated, "They asserted they had called off the trip and Ryan went alone. These photos demonstrate that all 4 of them were present together." The medical examiner finished the initial examination, establishing the cause of death as blunt force trauma to the back of the skull, a single forceful impact from a rounded object. A fractured cheekbone was also present, indicating a physical confrontation prior to the fatal injury. While arrangements proceeded for the afternoon's interrogations, an unforeseen development emerged. Park Ranger Caleb Sullivan, the veteran ranger, having heard the discovery over the radio, instantly identified the location based on the provided coordinates. "Approximately 4 months ago, around early June, I came across a group of young men camping without authorization in that precise clearing," Sullivan recounted. "There were 4 teenagers, all male. They possessed a lifted Jeep Wrangler, painted bright red and equipped with oversized tires." He continued, "I addressed them regarding the unlawful camping and vehicle use on a closed road. Did you observe anything out of the ordinary in their behavior?" Whitley insisted. The ranger paused, appearing to consider the situation. "They seemed anxious, which I attributed to being caught in violation of the regulations. A particular detail was noticeable. They possessed a significant amount of camping equipment, but it appeared largely unused. Tents remained packed, sleeping bags were rolled, yet their fire had been active for some time, and numerous empty beer cans were present. They were preparing to depart quickly, Lydia proposed. Precisely, Sullivan affirmed. I believed they were simply startled by the apprehension of being discovered. He hesitated, the unspoken thought hanging in the air. Whitley displayed yearbook photos of Ryan's 3 friends on his laptop. Do any of these look familiar? Sullivan examined the images, quickly pointing to Tyler Westfield. He was present. He was quite assertive until the largest boy intervened. He then pointed to Ethan Drake's photo. That appears to be the bigger one. The unanticipated testimony notably bolstered the case. Sullivan's interaction probably transpired soon after Ryan's death, potentially as the other teenagers were getting ready to leave the area. The interview space at the county sheriff's department was intentionally plain. It contained a basic table, 4 chairs, and a one-way observation mirror displaying the anxious expression of Jason Morrow. At 17, he appeared younger than his age, his shoulders slumping protectively as he sat next to his mother and their quickly hired lawyer. Jason, Detective Whitley began, I'm investigating the death of Ryan Hollister, whose body was found yesterday in Rockwell National Forest. The teenager's eyes widened a little, but he kept a fairly calm demeanor. That's awful, he stated, his voice even. Ryan was my friend. We were all heartbroken when he went missing. Whitley responded, opening his folder, I recall your statement from 4 months ago. You informed Detective Garcia that the 4 of you had arranged a hiking trip to Crestwood Park, but you 3 canceled, allowing Ryan to go unaccompanied. Jason confirmed readily. That is correct. A family matter arose. Despite this, Whitley spoke steadily, arranging several printed photographs on the table, stating, we possess photographic proof that all 4 of you were camping in Rockwell Forest, contrary to the claim of hiking in Crestwood Park. He presented the photos retrieved from Ryan's phone to Jason. These photographs were taken on the date Ryan purportedly went hiking by himself. Jason's complexion visibly paled as he examined the compromising images. A photograph showed 4 smiling teenagers posing for the camera, with beer cans visible, and Ryan was clearly alive and among the group. Oh my God, Jason's mother whispered, her hand covering her mouth. His attorney leaned forward, maintaining a professional composure, but visibly shaken. Where did these come from? Whitley answered Ryan's phone, presenting additional evidence. A photograph of the recovered device sealed in an evidence bag. The device was found deliberately hidden under rocks close to your campsite, the very campsite where a park ranger observed 3 young men in a red Jeep Wrangler registered to Tyler Westfield's father. Whitley subsequently placed a map on the table, clearly indicating both Crestwood Park and Rockwell Forest. You directed the police to search an area 20 miles from his actual location. That's more than just a falsehood, Jason. That's intentional deception. My client isn't obligated to address these claims, the lawyer stated, but Jason was already faltering under the pressure of the evidence. It was an accident, he exclaimed, tears forming in his eyes, as he disregarded his attorney's effort to quiet him with a hand on his arm. We never intended for any of this to occur. You must believe me. During the following hour, the disturbing reality surfaced through Jason's hesitant admission. The 4 friends had brought a substantial amount of alcohol, consuming it heavily around the campfire late into the night. Ryan and Tyler had a disagreement, Jason recounted, his gaze fixed on the table. It was over something trivial concerning Tyler's girlfriend. The disagreement intensified, eventually becoming physical. Jason stated that Ethan initially attempted to intervene, but then sided with Tyler as the confrontation worsened. Ryan, finding himself at a disadvantage, tried to depart, gathering his possessions and requesting Tyler to drive him to his vehicle. Tyler declined, as he was too intoxicated to operate a car. Ryan stated he would leave on foot and contact his father for transportation. At that point, Ethan pushed him. Ryan fell and struck his head on the fire ring. Significant bleeding occurred, and he showed no signs of movement. The 3 teenagers panicked, understanding Ryan had died, and they were a considerable distance from assistance, under the influence, and illegally present on restricted forest land. According to Jason, Tyler suggested burying him, his voice barely audible. Tyler claimed it was an accident, but no one would believe them, given they had been drinking. They feared they would all go to prison. They had buried Ryan's body away from the campsite, gathered their equipment, and fled. The following morning, they drove Ryan's car to Crestwood Park and abandoned it at the trailhead, fabricating the story that he had gone hiking alone. As evening arrived, all three teenagers were apprehended and formally charged. Tyler and Ethan faced charges of manslaughter and evidence tampering, while Jason was charged with accessory after the fact and obstruction of justice. Their elaborate deception had crumbled entirely when confronted with substantial evidence and Jason's thorough confession. They nearly succeeded, Whitley observed to Lydia, as they watched the three being processed. Without your dog's remarkable skills, Ryan might have stayed lost indefinitely. 3 days following the discovery of Ryan Hollister's body, Lydia stood with Aspen at the border of the forest clearing that had transformed into a temporary memorial. Ryan's parents had been at the location earlier that day, placing flowers and pictures of their son near a large pine tree. Your dog altered everything, a soft voice said from behind her. Lydia turned to see Elizabeth Hollister, Ryan's mother, walking towards them with her husband James. Lines of grief were visible on their faces, but they maintained a dignified composure. We wanted to thank you personally, James said, his voice thick with emotion. He spoke of how Aspen found Ryan during a training exercise, and how she wouldn't leave until an investigation was initiated. Lydia responded gently, noticing a lump form in Elizabeth's throat as she knelt beside Aspen. The shepherd remained remarkably still, her typical composed attitude relaxing a little, as Elizabeth's mother softly stroked her head. The moment felt deeply meaningful, a bond existing between the woman who mourned her son and the dog who had ultimately led him back. For months of uncertainty had been agonizing, Elizabeth murmured. The recurring dreams always centered on him, isolated, adrift, and hoping to be discovered. Now, at long last, we can ensure he receives a fitting burial. Afterward, as the sunset filled the western sky with vivid oranges and pinks, Lydia brought Aspen to their preferred tranquil location, a bluff offering a view of the river valley, a place they frequently visited to find solace at the close of challenging days. The shepherd remained beside his handler, both of them observing the shifting hues in a peaceful silence. The recent events had clearly impacted both of them. Aspen had worked almost 20 hours consecutively during the initial investigation, only stopping when Lydia had insisted. Even now, after being officially released from the case, the shepherd continued to exhibit a sense of watchful readiness, as if her obligation to Ryan wasn't entirely fulfilled. Chief Bennett had contacted them that afternoon with news that the department had received numerous calls and emails commending Aspen's work. The local newspaper featured the headline, "Hero Dog Brings Justice After 4 Months of Silence," with a photo of Aspen at the crime scene, her focused expression reflecting the intensity that had cracked the case. "You knew exactly what you were doing, didn't you?" Lydia murmured, rubbing the spot behind Aspen's ears that always elicited an appreciative lean, deliberately breaking the rules to ensure everyone listened. Aspen turned to meet her handler's gaze, those intelligent eyes communicating volumes. Their bond had been tested and proven in the most challenging circumstances, reinforcing what Lydia had always believed. That true partnership went beyond conventional training and rigid protocols. Master Sergeant Calloway called, Lydia told her partner, smiling at the recollection of the conversation. He stated you've made him prouder than any medal he ever received, and that he always believed you were destined for something exceptional. The shepherd's ears rose at the reference to her first trainer, her head tilting a little, seeming to request further information. He will be visiting next month and wishes to see you, bringing some specialized training equipment he has created. At that instant, observing the final light of the day disappear over the valley, Lydia experienced deep appreciation for the intricate series of events that had united them. The Marine who transformed personal sorrow into training remarkable dogs, the challenging shepherd who required the appropriate handler, and the confidence they had fostered which enabled Aspen's unique talents to emerge when it was most crucial. What had previously appeared as stubborn disobedience was shown to be unusual insight, the capacity to understand when human regulations required alteration for a significant objective. Have you ever observed an animal perceive something that humans entirely overlooked? Animals have remarkable instincts that occasionally appear almost supernatural, enabling them to detect things outside human perception. Aspen's extraordinary skill in finding Ryan's grave within a distant forest during a standard training exercise highlights how our canine companions often experience the world in ways we struggle to understand. Consider what you would do if you were Lydia. Should you adhere to established procedures or rely on your dog's intuition? It's understandable to envision the stress she felt when Aspen disregarded training protocols, which could have resulted in embarrassment before her colleagues. That pivotal decision to trust her partner, despite all rational objections, ultimately provided closure for a grieving family and justice for a young man who might otherwise have never been found. If this story of canine heroism touched your heart, please hit that like button to help us reach more dog lovers around the world. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary canine stories, and make sure to press the notification bell so you never miss our new uploads. Please share this video with friends and family who value the incredible skills of working dogs and the unique connection they have with their handlers. Don't miss our previous stories about canine heroes, which are currently playing, including the inspiring account of a police dog who discovered a concealed area, leading to the disruption of an international smuggling operation, and the search and rescue dog who found a lost child during a blizzard despite the failure of all human attempts. Join us tomorrow, at the same time, for another compelling story exploring the extraordinary world of working dogs and their handlers.